Hello everybody and welcome back. Today I'm checking out We Fell for the Oldest Lie on the Internet by SocietySucks. Of course, the video probably has a different title now by the time you watch it, because SocietySucks loves to change their titles and thumbnails for some reason. So let's see exactly what they're talking about here. Link to the original video will of course be down in the description below.
Look at this fun fact. Did you know that your blood vessels taken together add up to 100,000 kilometers, enough to wrap them around the planet twice? One of our favorite fun facts used in our book and app and
like
video
a lie.
and... Wait. 100,000 kilometers is like a lot. We've used it so often, but where did we get this number from? And how do we know it's true? Welcome to an epic research riddle that took us well over a year to figure out and led us on a strange and baffling journey. It began extremely innocently. We always collect interesting and fun facts to make our stories more colourful. And this one was just perfect.
That means
All
someone
of your blood
naive.
vessels twice around the world. Small thing, big number. Wow.
I don't believe that. Not
But
for a
one
second.
day, someone asked where this number was actually from. Did it really matter though? Because it had to be true. If
How would you
Google
even check that?
variations of how long
Who's volunteering to somehow get all their blood vessels out of their body, aka die, and measure the length? Like who's offering? Because I don't think you're gonna find anybody.
your blood vessels put together, you'll find the same numbers over and over. 100,000 kilometers or 60,000 miles. You find it in books, blogs, web pages of educational institutions, or lecture notes, reviews, scientific papers and articles. We ourselves have used it multiple times. So it couldn't be that hard to find the source, right? Right? The first perplexing
even
thing
a
we
source
noticed was that
that's
not a single one
accurate?
of the many websites, books or articles quoted the original source. Most didn't give a source at all, some linked to each other. It seemed like the number was just accepted as a truism. Very weird. Even worse and more suspicious was that the number was used inconsistently. Some said it's the total length of capillaries, some said it's just veins plus arteries, and others cited it as the length of everything put together. Something wasn't right. We couldn't let this go. Getting our facts straight is critical for what we do here, and
There
since
probably
we've used
isn't
this fact
even like a
ourselves
source
few
to this.
times,
Someone just probably
now
threw
felt
out the
personal.
random
We needed to
100,000
find
at some
the
point,
original source
and everybody
and
just
solve
accepted it
this
for some
research
reason.
riddle. There had to be an original source. Random Googling just turned up thousands of sites that quoted the number, no lead to the original. So we moved on to PubMed, a search engine for biomedical science papers. 0 results. Okay, weird. Maybe if we tried a few different keyword combinations. Nothing. Okay, finally, we found a bunch of scientific papers, but still, not a single one referenced the original source. The number also showed up in 2 different biology textbooks. We contacted the authors, but they told us that the number has been circulating for decades and that they'd also be curious to know where it comes from. Maybe we
Everyone
needed
has
to
just
go back
accepted
to
it
the
as the
olden
truth
days.
without
So
even
we
being able
narrowed
to
our
confirm
search
it.
to the last few decades, starting with the 1990s. And would you look at that, we found 2 books, Vital Circuits by Stephen Vogel and Looking at the Body by David Suzuki. And it turned out Dr. Suzuki is an OG science communicator with a PhD in zoology who started doing popular programming in the 1970s on Canadian television. He has 29 honorary degrees and has written 52 books. Impressive.
Damn.
He may either be the original
That's
source
impressive.
or at least know what it is. So we ordered Looking at the Body to look for it, and here it is. If all the body's blood vessels were laid end to end, they would stretch 96,000 kilometers, 60,000 miles. That's about 2.5 times around the world. But again, no source. It turned out he's still around doing things in his late 80s, so we thought maybe if we asked Dr. Suzuki personally, he might know where the number's from. He had no public email, but a personal inquiry is possible by writing a letter to Dr. Suzuki.
How do I contact him?
Very old school, very respectable. So we wrote a letter. Dear Dr. Suzuki, we're writing to you on a matter of grave importance. What is the original source for the 100,000 kilometers? Our internet video and our sanity depend on it. Pretty please. Respectfully yours, SocietySucks Fact Checkers. 3 weeks later, we actually got a reply. Dear Weird Internet
That's surprising.
People,
I would assume he just wouldn't even reply to that. I would assume he doesn't even check that. Someone probably checks it for him and just rejects almost everything.
Unfortunately, Dr. Suzuki does not recall the source of this data. And since the book was written over 30 years ago, he doesn't have files that old available to look it up. Good luck with your project. You're going to need it. Kind regards, Public Information Coordinator. Okay, they didn't quite use these words and were actually really nice, but still, bummer. Maybe the 1992 popular science book by Stephen Vogel, a Duke University biomechanics professor, would be more helpful. It has this sentence. Combined length of pipes 100,000 kilometers, 60,000 miles, more than twice around the Earth at the equator. So the book talks about this on one of its 300 pages. But where is the source? Unfortunately, there's only a list of 93 references and sources with no indication where in the book they're pointing to. Our original source may be in
so you have to look through every
books and
single
articles in this list. Ouch! Reading all of those would take weeks. Was this really worth it? Or had we got lost in the forest of human knowledge?
It's not worth it, but they made a video out of it, which is probably going to end up getting a couple million views, so it definitely was worth it for them.
Looking for answers to questions nobody's asking and nobody cares about. But we'd wasted so much time already, so we decided to just do that one by one. And now, for a change, we just got stupidly lucky. For no particular reason, we decided to check the sources from last to first, and it turned out the very source checked first was what we were looking for. A Scientific American article
that
from
is extremely
1959,
lucky.
The microcirculation of the blood. So we got a scan of this 65-year-old science magazine, and there it was. But this was still not the original source.
Oh,
but
never mind.
It did reference where it got the number from. The Anatomy and Physiology of
1929.
Capillaries, a 1922 book by August Kroll, winner of a Nobel Prize for Medicine. He probably knew what he was talking about. So we ordered his book and bingo, we got the original source.
I mean, this is 1929 we're talking about. This is before World War II. Can we really say that the measurement of 100,000 kilometers is going to be accurate if it's that old? Yes, it's 1929, but technology still wasn't that great at that point in time. So I still just don't believe this number. It still just seems like too much. I doubt it's accurate.
Of Kroll's lectures,
at least not
was
completely
highly praised
accurate
by experts at the time. It summarizes his research and adds new experiments, ideas and hypotheses. So, here it was, the original source, used thousands of times for over a century.
He says must be something like, not that it is. So this is just an estimate. Yeah, there's no factual evidence that this is actually true. It's just an estimate that it's 100,000 kilometers long.
Source, used thousands of times for over a century. Supposing a man's muscles to weigh 50 kilograms and his capillaries to number 2,000 per square millimeter, the total length of all these tubes put together must be something like 100,000 kilometers, or 2.5 times round the globe, and their total surface 6,300 square meters. While other scientists had speculated on the length of all the capillaries before, Kroll was the first to make a real estimate based on real experiments. Something very solid. Okay, and now that we were here, was it correct? Kroll's book includes this rather cryptic table without calculations or explanations. It seems to have been obvious to him, but not to us looking at it a century
Well, of course it's
later.
obvious to him. He's the one who wrote it.
Actually read the book. In a very breakthrough sciencey kind of way, Kroll just winged it. In a nutshell, he cut muscle samples from different animals, started counting and made some rule of thumb assumptions. Today, we know that his assumptions about the density of capillaries in humans was quite off. On top of that, he used a kind of idealized bodybuilder human weighing 143 kilograms with 50 kilograms of pure muscle
So it's not
mass.
the average human.
And this finally gave him the very pleasing number of 100,000 kilometers. It would be unfair to blame Kroll. This was just a small ancillary fact he probably calculated for fun and out of curiosity, not elemental to his body of work. But he was.
So of course the number 100,000 is completely wrong for the vast majority of people. It's only for people who have the exact muscle mass and weight that Craw used to measure that.
Was a world expert, so his incorrect number was used in scientific papers, spread and became dogma, eventually entirely detached from the original source. At this point in our research, over a year had passed. So, just to be sure, we did another Google search and, while we were caught up in our personal mission to find the source, up to the neck in old books, writing letters to Canada, scientists quietly published a paper not really getting a lot of attention from anybody. They calculated a new number, a way more accurate estimate. If we had just waited another year, we could have saved doing all that work.
All that work for nothing because they calculated the real
now,
number.
Here it is. According to the newest science, the
Or
length
at
of
least
all
a
the
more
capillaries
accurate
of a
one than
human
the previous.
is somewhere between 9,000 and 19,000 kilometers.
That is
Very
far more
impressive,
believable.
but not enough to go around the world. A sort of conclusion. If you look up the question today, you'll likely still not find the real answer, but thousands of sources, among them
Well, 100,000 kilometers looks better than 9 to 19,000.
one Kurzgesagt video using the wrong number, and it will
And a
probably
big
stay
number
like that
just
for a
catches
while.
people's attention
In
far
all this
more than...
time, why did nobody bother
something
to double
smaller.
check this? Well, because the reality is it's extremely hard and time-consuming. As we mentioned before, it took us a year and a great deal of luck to get to the bottom of this on our own. Investing this time and effort while you're writing a paper is just not feasible for most scientists or science communicators. If a number seems safe and is used by credible sources, most people, including us, end up quoting a secondary source or worse. Also, it's just such a nice round number that will stick with
Yep.
you once you've heard it.
It's a
Facts
nice
that
big
seem
number,
beautiful tend to
100,000.
survive much longer. But that's exactly the problem, isn't it? The most interesting stories survive on the internet, and often with each retelling, they get more exciting and memorable. It takes a lot of energy to get to the bottom of things, and a factoid is easily repeated, so misinformation can persist. When we started this research, we didn't think we'd end up here. You, dear viewer, got a little peek into the kinds of mazes we have to navigate just to tell you our short sciencey stories. They are as true as we can possibly make them. We'll run into the same traps as everybody else from time to time. But we're doing our best to correct misinformation, give more context, and to bring you the latest science on any topic we cover. See you next time.
This story really reminds me of the time I spent almost an entire week looking for the original version of a meme. Obviously, I didn't have to put in as much work as they did. Not even close. There's no competition. But it really reminds me of this. This really just shows how much information gets lost over time and how it changes, because originally the 100,000 was meant for a person of a certain weight and amount of muscle and not for the average human. But because people just possibly didn't care to check or just forgot about that fact, they just assumed that the 100,000 was for every human, which of course it isn't, because it's only for a certain type of person. The one who meets those ideal requirements for the weight and muscle. While the real number is between 5 to 10 times smaller, because it's only 9 to 19,000. I think that about sums up everything I wanted to say. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider subscribing and leaving a like. If you're interested, why not watch this video right here? And with that, I hope I'll see you in the next video.